guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Well, the layoffs are here. AI is going to be taking over a lot of jobs like we knew that it eventually would. And automation is now starting in California. I talked about this now I want to say about 9 months when AI really started to take off. And I said, this is going to replace a lot of jobs out there in the tech market. And it's going to replace, I think, more than people initially thought. And I want to talk a little bit about this because it's already replaced some HR positions. Now it is going to be replacing marketing and sales in many larger companies. If you work for the smaller company, they probably can't afford the AI yet. But eventually it will get down to that point to where if you're doing any type of sales on the backside of a desk, or you're in HR or in anything else, you're probably going to be looking for a new job soon. The good news is I think a lot of guys are starting to pay attention, specifically guys, mostly men. They're paying attention. They see all the ads for these tech companies saying they're not hiring anybody that's white or anybody that's straight or anybody that's male. They realize that they're going into hawk for a lot of debt on a college degree that they're not going to be able to use because they're not being hired at these major firms. So they're skipping it. And that's where I'm going to start with the red pill portion of this, the good news out of all of this. Normally, I would say, this is really bad that guys are not going to college. It means they're not going to be in the upper echelons of business. But seeing how things are trending, I think this is actually good news until the price of college comes down, until you can get hired in a lot of these positions with your degree and this wokeness goes away. And so I think there's something to be said for the good news out of this. The other thing that many of the governments are now talking about, specifically in Canada, is they're talking about bringing in a universal basic income, which as more people are not working some of these jobs and AI take over them, the government will probably start taxing businesses more so that they can pay for universal basic income. I'm going to talk about that a little bit and why that is ultimately going to fail, or why I think it's going to fail as well. So from Breitbart survey, fewer young men are attending college. The decline in college enrollment among U.S. young adults in the past decades is being driven in part by fewer young men pursuing higher education, according to data analysis by Pew Research Center. Roughly 1 million fewer young men are in college compared to 0.2 million fewer young women in the past decade. Pew senior researcher Richard Fry wrote, citing new data from the U.S. Census Bureau pertaining to 18 to 24-year-olds college enrollment data. As a result, men make up 44% of young college students today, down from 47% in 2011. The shift is driven entirely by the falling share of men who are students at four-year colleges. Today, men represent only 42% of students age 18 to 24 at four-year schools, down from 47% in 2011. Now, normally I would say this is bad news. The women are just taking over colleges and the women are getting the upper education. But a lot of these graduates that are women are getting worthless degrees. We've seen it, that now there's social media manager and there's, diversity and human resources and all this stuff. So they're getting in a lot of debt and then taking these cushy jobs like the TikTok videos that we show where these women are walking around Twitter showing how they're goofing off all day and getting these expensive breakfasts, and then they're playing cornhole on the fourth floor until 5 p.m. and then they're going out for drinks with their friends. Well, all the women that made those videos, they've been fired. They've been laid off. They don't have jobs anymore. And so what are they going to do to pay? If you've watched the last couple of videos I've done, they don't have any way to pay for their student debt. No wonder Biden's out there trying to cancel all of it. But that comes at a cost, and that cost is taxes going up. And so when she becomes a waitress or a bartender or a barista or whatever, those taxes, the government is now forcing tips to be reported on taxes. That's why they hired 87,000 new IRS agents. It's not to go after the few wealthy people. Trust me on that. You don't need 87,000. That's why anytime you transfer $600 or more here in the U.S. to anyone else, you've got to record that data for taxes now. They're coming after all of it. You have a side hustle where you're only getting cash, they're going to start cracking down on that. Why? Because they have to bring in more taxes to pay for all the ridiculous stuff. Well, guys are learning. Guys are learning. And I tell you right now, over at my cabin that I'm building, there's a crew of 8, 6 dudes, 2 women. And I think the 2 women are married to, or I'm pretty sure they're married to 2 of the guys working over there. It's a family business, basically. It's a family business. So it's a family staining my home. Those guys are over there laughing it up. They're having a great time. As a matter of fact, when I don't have my sound filters on, I'm sitting here and I can hear them playing music over there and laughing and having a good time. And I look out the window and they're all hustling and working hard. They're happy. They're working hard. I'm paying them good money to stain my house. God knows I'm paying them good money to stain my house because they have to be on ladders up 50 feet in the air, and I don't want to do that because old man will kill himself. But guys are getting the lesson, and they're not going into student debt where they're going to owe hundreds of thousands. Also notice, particularly, they say 4-year colleges. They don't say 2-year colleges. They don't say trade schools. They're falling out of the 4-year college. I think guys are getting it. They see the writing on the wall. Well, this is from TechCrunch, a comprehensive list of 2023 tech layoffs. Major layoffs at Google, Amazon, Microsoft, small fintech startups and apps. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but you can see here's all the layoffs, and it's continued all the way through. And it was a lot of them in January of this past year. It's 250,000 people getting laid off. It's not all human resources. It's not all marketing. But if you think about it, like Elon Musk went, and whether you like or hate Elon, that's irrelevant. He went in there to Twitter and he said, we don't need all of you. And I think he laid something like, 5,000 people off out of the 7,500 people that are there. Who did he keep? He kept a couple of marketing, a couple of probably HR, and then he kept all the engineers. And the rest just went the way of the dodo. A lot of companies are going to be doing that because they have to trim the fat with the economy that's coming up. Right now, the stock market's doing great. It's booming. Why? Because the federal government came out and they said, we're probably going to do 6 rate cuts over the next year. And so the market is responding to that good news, but they haven't cut the rates yet. And if they do cut the rates, the problem that they're going to have is the slowdown of the government spending hasn't happened yet, which means inflation will continue to grow. And even unless inflation goes negative, even if it just goes to 0%, prices are up in some markets 50% right now. That means they won't come back until salaries come up and meet it. And when they try to raise the salaries, the companies can't afford it. There's going to be a lot of fall off here. This is from Google. Google layoffs tech giant to cut down 30,000 jobs. After firing 12,000 employees earlier this year, Google's planning to lay off another 30,000 employees as per a report. Alphabet-owned Google plans to reorganize a big part of its 30,000 person ad sales unit. So they've got 30,000 people in ad sales they're going to be getting rid of. Why? AI. AI can do a lot of this. They say this marks the 4th instance of job reductions by Google in 2023. The year commenced with a significant cutback as the firm divulged plans in January to eliminate thousands of positions, eventually letting go of 12,000 individuals. They plan to reorganize a big part of its 30,000-person ad sales unit, citing a person with knowledge of the situation. Sean Downey, who oversees ad sales to big customers in the Americas, said the department-wide meeting last week that Google plans to restructure its ad sales teams without specifying whether the move would include layoffs. Of course it will. The plan reorganized comes as Google is relying more on machine-learned techniques to help customers buy more ads on its search engines, YouTube, and other services. My solar batteries just kicked in, so if you start hearing a little whining while I talk, that's what it is. I apologize for that. But they say basically they've already cut 6% of its global workforce with the 12,000 jobs. That means if it lays off 30,000 more, it's cutting another 15%, which means 20% of the workforce on the year. Other companies are doing the same thing, as you can see here in tech. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, small fintech startups and apps. The people that are going to do the best during this situation are the guys that are out there that are staining my building, that are pouring the concrete. I said this in the last video. I will say it again because not everybody watches all my videos. Getting people to pour concrete and to wire electricity for my home, getting my solar panels installed and my solar batteries for my house is going on a year just to get a contract. They don't have enough solar installers. And you might say, well, that's not a glorious job and that's, manual labor. Yes. The point is, though, it's going to cost me a ton of money to get this stuff done because I have to pay more to these people to do it because there's not enough for them to hire a crew. So they have to offer more money to assemble a crew, which means I need to pay this guy more money to pay his crew. That means electricians and plumbers and welders and solar installers and roof, all these companies are going to be paying more because there's not enough people doing the jobs. What about the tech layoffs? When they're going through laying people off at Facebook and Twitter and all these tech layoffs, and remember, these are the people that likely hate you because they're the ones that are bringing in all the new wokeification of if the company doesn't do what I want, I'm going to protest my own company. These people that hate you, that are better than you, that are making these videos of how great their lives are compared to you bottom-feeding manual labor jerk you. These are the same people now that are baristas and looking for jobs. They're going to be released from tech, where the guys that are turning wrenches and things, they're going to be needed a lot more. I'm not going to go down through the rest of it. You guys get it. It's basically layoffs. So then what are these tech girls and these HR women and all these wokeified HR people and managers and salespeople, what are they going to do? They talk about being a waitress. They talk about being a barista. They talk about maybe going to try to live off tips. Well, I got news for you. All of them are out in California. What's happening? At least the majority of these tech companies are out in California. What's happening in California now? Fast food workers in California earned $20 an hour in 2024. So Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, said, hey, you know what? We've got so many, fast food used to be, when Joker was a young pup in high school, I used to do this for $5 an hour, whatever the minimum wage was. I think it was actually $4.25 an hour, if I remember correctly. Yes, I'm that old. But I used to do it, and I'd make $70 or $100 every couple of weeks, working part-time while I was in high school, and that was enough money. I could take my girlfriend out to the movies. I could put gas in my car to go to work, and maybe I could save up a little money for, I don't know, something, maybe a hobby or something like that. But because so many people are falling into fast food and trying to make it a lifelong job because they're not smart enough or hardworking enough or capable enough to get into the trades, or maybe they just don't have the drive. There's some people that are stuck in fast food and they don't have any opportunity. But then pack your crap and go somewhere where there's opportunity. Look for a job where you can be an apprentice making $20 an hour, learning how to be a finishing carpenter or something like that. You got to get out. But instead, these people stay in these know-nothing jobs, and then they demand lots of money. And California says, okay, $20 an hour. And everybody cheers. Oh, yay. This is what the progressives and the left and the people that are all for screwing with the economy, they all cheer in unison. Oh, fast food workers are finally getting what they deserve. Yes, because flipping burgers and pulling fries out of a basket, you need to get paid more than an EMT driver or a technician. So now what's going to happen? Well, all these tech people are going to dump out and they're going to work at, fast food or restaurants or becoming baristas and servers, because that's what apparently you do while you're waiting to get into Hollywood and you're not able to work at the tech companies anymore. And guess what? They're going to have layoffs. California Pizza Hut franchise announces layoffs of delivery drivers before the new $20 minimum wage report. Apparently, they're dumping almost all of them. Multiple Pizza Hut franchises in California are planning to lay off delivery drivers as the restaurant chain braces for an increase in the minimum wage for fast food workers. Pack Pizza LLC, operating as Pizza Hut, has made a business decision to eliminate first-party delivery services and, as a result, elimination of all delivery driver positions. So now they'll have to use Uber or something else, or not Uber. What is it? What's the delivery service for for food? Uber Eats, I think it is. Well, Uber Eats is going to have to increase their pricing. And so to get a pizza delivered to your house, it's going to cost you $30. So people just go get their pizza, or they're not going to buy their pizzas. And I think in another report I read, it's something like 5,000 drivers are going to be eliminated. Another operator, Southern California Pizza Company, layoffs around 841 drivers. So now delivery pizza is going the way of the dodo. They say the franchises will rely on third-party apps like Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. The announcements come at $20 an hour beginning in April. The increase was proposed as a way to offset the increased cost of living in California. So here's how stupid it is, okay? This is how stupid politicians are, governments are, everything else. See, everybody complains about the free market and capitalism. But what happens is the governments come in and they take control of it. And then they're the ones that screw it all off. So what happens? Minimum wage goes up to $20. All of a sudden, people are complaining because their Big Mac meal that used to be $7 is now $18. And so people stop eating McDonald's. What happens? We don't need as many employees. So you get rid of more of those $20 an hour. Now you've got unemployment going up. Then on top of that, you've got companies like McDonald's and fast food chains, Starbucks, everything else. They're going through and they're saying, we're going to replace them with machines. So now to have an automated robot be able to, basically you're going to have one employee there to make sure the machines don't get screwed up. The burger flipping machine accidentally grabbed 2 burgers that are frozen together. Well, let me separate that out and I'll fix that. And then the burger machine hums right along, flipping the burgers and stacking everything up. And the machine comes over, automatically dumps ketchup on it, slaps it together, and pops it out. Same thing with the baristas. They got a Mocha Grande Frappuccino machine coming that can make 36 seconds rather than 87 seconds for a cup of coffee. Now you can divide your workforce by 2. It offers a more stabilized production environment. Around 58% of restaurant operators said the use of automation and tech to help address labor shortages will become more common this year. So what's happening? These entitled kids say, I'm not going to work at fast food. They don't pay me enough. It's demeaning. And these are, 18-year-old kids where I would have been glad. I would have been thrilled to have a full-time, good, steady paying job when I was a kid. But now these kids have been told you deserve more, you deserve better with your $100,000 in debt in college. Now you need to go out there and become a CEO of a company in 15 minutes. And what do? They get into these big tech companies. They get into middle management. They get into marketing. They get into sales. They get into social media accounts, whatever. And they're the first to go. They're first to lay off. And then they go, I'm too good to work at fast food, but at least they'll pay me $20. And fast food companies are like, can't afford it. And now the rest of us can't afford, I can't afford going down to Burger King and McDonald's every day. Not that it's good food. It's literally poison. But you can't go down there and afford to eat a $15 Big Mac meal or a $10 or $12 breakfast. You do that for 3 meals a day, you're talking about $50 worth of food. Then you go into grocery and try to eat healthy, and that's becoming more expensive. Although I still think it's better to have some fried eggs and some bacon. And you for the $10 worth of bacon and maybe $5 for eggs, that $15, you can cook enough to have 3 healthy breakfasts. That's still $5 a breakfast versus the $10 or $12 of fast food. So now no one can afford the fast food, so they're going to have layoffs. No one can afford to pay $20, so they're going to automation. This is how everything starts to collapse. And what do they say? So now they've done all this to the market. And they say, okay, well, since people are getting laid off and we're not able to give them the $20 an hour, we're going to come out and do a universal basic income to help everybody that's struggling. And that's what Canada's decided to do. Hey, you know what increases inflation? Government spending. You know what increases inflation? Consumer spending. So you increase inflation to slow down and cool the economy. But then people don't have enough money for things. So what does the brilliant geniuses over at Canada decide to do? Well, let's give everybody free money from the government. So the government will take $5,000 per person a year in taxes, and then they'll give you back $1,000 of money to spend. And then the other $4,000, they'll go pay for all the administration and the middle management. This is how you get the doom spiral. this is how things start falling apart. From Wall Street Silver on Twitter, he says Canada to implement a universal basic income of $2,000 per month. It doesn't matter how much money you make, you will be eligible for $2,000 per month. That's pretty crazy. This will be an influx into the economy that will be highly inflationary. We all remember what happened with overstimulation during COVID times. We're now paying for all of that big time. So let's listen. This is only a minute clip. Guys, to understand and hear this stuff, because if you give everybody $2,000 a month, and I have a study about of what UBI does in small segments, but when you do it to a whole country, what's going to happen? No one's going to want to work because they think people get $2,000 a month and they're going to go work full time at a fast food place. But let's take Johnny on the spot, right? He's now getting $2,000 a month for sitting on his ass. And he could go and work for $20 an hour at McDonald's, but he can't get full time. Why? Because the Obama administration came through with anybody working more than, I think, 32 hours an hour, $32 an hour, or 32 hours a week, the employer has to give like free health care or a certain amount of money towards the health care. So corporations can't, many companies like the fast food ones and mom and pop shops, they can't afford to do that. So now they give everybody part-time jobs. So now you don't get that health insurance so you have to pay for that. That's out of your pocket. Now, on top of that, let's say you are getting $20 an hour in California and you get your 30 hours a week. That's $600 a week. Multiply that times 4 weeks, that's $2,400. Do you think somebody's going to want to get up and work full-time or 30 hours a week at fast food to make $2,400 when they can sit on their butts and get $2,000 and play video games and hang out with friends and everything else? Let's say they do. Okay, well, now they'll be doing even better. But if fast food pays me $20 an hour and I'm an EMT tech and I only make $24 an hour and I have to stress out and go through all these certifications, and I'm a nurse and I maybe make $28 an hour and I have to go through all these certifications and all this stress, forget it. I'm just going to go work fast food and collect my UBI. So what happens? Now to get nurses, you have to raise the amount of money. All tides go up. If the old baseline for fast food was $10 an hour and now it's $20, then you have to pay nurses twice as much probably. And you have to pay EMT techs and you have to pay garbage men. And what happens? Hyperinflation. Hyperinflation and stagnation in the economy. Governments getting involved in this is what tears it all down. Let's hear from this gentleman here.
Every Canadian receive $2,000 monthly, and this is a proposal that is currently in the Senate, and it could reach the House of Commons as early as next year. This is to fight poverty. Apparently, every single Canadian will get this credit regardless of your income if you are 17 years or older. This is pretty crazy. I hope that this doesn't fly. We all remember what happened with the CERB, the CERB, the overstimulation during COVID times. We are now paying for all of that, big time. That overstimulation created more harm than any good, to be honest. And I know during COVID times we needed some help, for sure. But in hindsight, now hopefully we have to learn the lesson, and this cannot happen. This will be an influx into the economy that will be highly inflationary. We don't need any of that right now. So what do you think? Do you think that...
Okay, so now let's look at this way, right? Everything starts inflating. The cost of everything goes up. Everybody gets universal basic income. Now you have to pay people more. Companies have to charge more. Now governments, but here's the trick. Governments get to tax more because everybody's making more. And then what do they take with all that taxed money? They put it right back into the UBI. Except, again, middle management takes its vig like mobsters. And so government gets bigger, and they're going to tax you more than the $2,000 you get. So if you get $2,000 a month, it's not like they're going to tax you $1,000 to pay you $2,000. No, they'll tax you $4,000 and they'll give you back $2,000. The prices of everything skyrockets. Pretty soon, that $20 an hour as a fast food person isn't enough, and that $2,000 UBI isn't enough because the cost of everything's gone up. So what do you do then? You raise the amount you give out with UBI, you raise how much you tax everybody, and you raise how much you pay everybody. It's a doom loop. And look, I am a mouth-breathing retard sitting in the middle of the woods, and I know it's a doom loop. So if I know this, if you can just understand basic principles of how the monetary policy works, how do we have governments doing this? Well, it's because you have stupid people getting degrees, financial degrees like AOC. They get into government and they do what feels good. They do what feels right to help struggling people without understanding anything about economics. This is right from David Wolf. Canada marches forward to becoming the first open borders NWO welfare state with a universal basic income.
Introduce a framework to develop a guaranteed livable basic income. We are struggling throughout this country with homelessness, food insecurity, poverty, health, mental health issues, and this is one way that we could start to look at these issues. It's not the only way, but it's certainly a key way.
And I think we've gathered a great deal of data to show.
Notice it's both women that are doing the feel-good stuff here. Granted, there's a lot of men falling in line as well. This will be the end of Canada. Trust me.
The consequences of offering people the opportunity.
Half of Canadians are
Another woman, kind of?
pessimistic about their personal finances. A quarter of low-income families cannot pay for monthly expenses.
Introduce
So what'll happen, and this is, I don't know when Canada's next elections are. They're basically buying votes. And they're going to come out and they're going to put this forward and everybody, oh man, they really took care of us. Life is so much easier now. Let's re-vote for the people that gave us the free money. Later on, the taxes come. Later on, the inflation comes. Later on, the doom spiral comes. This always works great in the beginning until you have to start coming up with the money to pay for these services. You tax the companies too much, headquarters move down to Jamaica or wherever there's a 5% tax rate. Companies will leave. That's one of the things that happened here in the United States. All these American companies put themselves like out of Jamaica, or I think another one was Scotland, where that's where their headquarters are, so they only pay a much lower tax base. So of course everything is going to get screwed up. Of course everything's going to get screwed up. And then companies can't afford to keep paying, and people can't afford to keep eating this stuff, and it all collapses. It all collapses. And so Finland did an actual study on this. One of the things to remember is when you do this with a very small segment of the population, it doesn't affect prices as a whole. In other words, if we've got like 1 million people in an area and you help out 1,000 of them, that isn't enough to change inflation. That isn't enough to change tax rates. That's not enough to change everything. But if you give it to everybody, you get hyperinflation. And that's why a lot of these studies where they had a small trial balloon and they said, oh, well, this is just, this worked okay. Sure, because you're only helping a small segment of the population, where now when you do it with a whole population, hyperinflation, collapse, it's inevitable. Giving jobless people in Finland a basic income for 2 years did not lead them to find work, researchers said. From January 2017 until December 2018, 2,000 unemployed Finns got a monthly flat payment of €560 or $634. The aim was to see if a guaranteed safety net would help people find jobs and support them if they had to take insecure gig economy work. While employment levels did not improve, participants said they felt happier and less stressed. When it launched the pilot scheme back in 2017, Finland became the first European country to test out the idea of an unconditional basic income. It was run by the Social Insurance Institution, a Finnish government agency that involved 2,000 randomly selected people on employment benefits. It immediately attracted international interest, but the results have now raised questions about the effectiveness of such schemes. And so they say, did it work? And they say, well, it depends. Like it gave people less stress. It gave people less stress, but they didn't go out and it helped them with a few of their bills. But it didn't help them go out and find work. They didn't go out and find more work. They basically just had a little bit more money to pay for things. And you could say, well, this is a good sign. If we do this for everybody, then even though the people that are working will continue to work and the people that are not working won't work, everybody gets a cushion. But that cushion's going to go away. Rent will go up. Housing will go up. Food will go up because you're going to have to pay everybody more money. These little 2,000 people amongst the million plus Finnish people, they would easily absorb the cost of this program because it's only 2,000 people and it was $500. That's not a whole lot of money. But when you're talking about the Canadian government giving everybody, including people that are very successful, making tons of money, when you give everybody $2,000, all you're doing is you're taking the base cost of living and you're upping it a notch. And then everything else has to come up a notch. This will be the end of that. Okay, so that's pretty much where I want to wrap this up. This segment that you see on the screen now, I'm going to be talking about that on Locals only. We don't talk about those things over here on YouTube. So if you want to become a member, you can join me over on betterbachelor.locals.com, where I will continue on with a little bit more information. The takeaway is free markets are not free when the government comes in and sticks their fingers into everything. They screw things up because a CEO knows his business. The managers, the employees, the people that create jobs and create businesses and understand what they offer and what they need for labor and what the costs are, and they understand how the market works because they're in the market. And the government, like all things, are filled with a bunch of mouth-breathing retards. And they come in and stick their fingers in everything and start screwing with things, thinking they know better than everybody else. Is it because they want to help everybody? Is it because they want to make life better? Or is it because they want to stay in power? That they want to, because they're not helping anybody by doing these things. They need to stay out of it. They need to let the market do what the market's going to do. And it will be a self-correcting problem. But they're going to come in, they're going to fiddle with things, and they're going to cause another collapse. That's why I keep thinking we're not heading towards recession. We're heading towards depression. Because as things get worse, both Canada and the United States and abroad, the governments that are worried about not getting elected and their poll numbers are awful and all things are going bad, instead of saying, my policies are bad, I screwed up, I will own this, I will step down and let somebody that is smarter or better than I am come in and fix this. Instead of doing that, they're going to put Band-Aids over arterial wounds like this, and it'll hold back that pressure for a little bit. But when it splits, it all comes crashing down. I hate to be a doom and gloom guy, but if they come through with this stuff, they're going to screw up the free market, and then they're going to turn around and blame it on capitalism. They're going to blame it on the market itself from them fiddling with it. And what's the next step? This is what happened when Mao and Stalin and the rest of them said, we're going to put mandatory pricing on food, and farmers can only do this. And that's where it all falls apart. The stupid people are in charge, and this is what happens. So be prepared. Guys, I wouldn't, there's a lot of places right now specifically looking for smart, hardworking people, even in business, even in tech, even in these other places. They're looking for smart, hardworking people that aren't woke, that'll take a little bit less money than these college graduates that have $200,000 in debt. And they're specifically looking for non-college graduates. So there's still a chance. Put in your applications if you want to be in the work world out there other than manual labor. You might be surprised, but you also might get caught up in the layoffs. So just be aware of that. All right, guys, we're going to go over to Locals to finish the rest of this. We will see you YouTubers in the next one.